Good morning, everybody. We're starting the meeting at 10:05 a.m. this morning. We'd like to remind all that when we go to this meeting, you have the right to agree and disagree, ask questions, and so on and so forth. So, who would be, Dion, are you in charge of the agenda? We need to have that up, please.
Oh,
Yep, I'm working on it.
you want to
Be
share
right.
it? Okay,
Yeah, I got it. 1 second.
thank you.
Do we have Vixen here? I don't see Vixen. Do you know if she's coming?
Oh, she missed last meeting.
I don't know.
No, she was here last time, so yeah.
See, Vanessa's here.
Vanessa, we appreciate you coming. I know you got plenty of things going on.
Thank you.
Okay. Please scroll down. Okay. Icebreaker would be, we were thinking about doing this short, so we could have enough time for everything else. If you had to describe yourself as an ice cream flavor, what would it be? And you can either do it in chat or you can present it here on camera.
I thought the last time we discussed this that we were going to use chat for it.
Give people choices.
Yeah, as long as we don't spend too much time on it.
Yeah. Mine would have to be chocolate mint. So I'll give you about a minute and a half. You think about your icebreaker. In the meantime, I'll hand it over to James so we can have our guest speakers.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think of it. What are our guest speakers? I did send them the invite. Let me see. Well, we may go into the recap while we wait for our guest speakers.
We
Hey,
have-
James. I am here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Not even looking.
No, you know why I think it is? Because when I joined, I don't know, like my Zoom is set up to show as Kristen McMullen because she's the admin. So maybe you didn't see my name come through at the beginning because anyways, I changed it a few minutes ago. I renamed my screen a few minutes ago.
I was literally IMing her. It was like, hi, you joined. What's going on?
I don't know if Azucena is in yet though.
Yeah, I'll check with her, see if she's coming.
Okay.
Adrian, I want to welcome you to the committee here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, James, we can let this start.
Well, let's give Azucena a moment, but and I can just mention, but Andrew and I can talk about the recap of items as long as Adriana has a few extra moments to stay with us. We have, the big reported change screen update is almost done. I included you notice those 6-digit numbers. Those are the numbers that we use internally to track these changes. And I figured we can, just so we can help track these a little better. If they're annoying, we can take them off the agenda, but It just saves us a step, at least it saves me a step from having to look them up. But Andrew, any thing to add about the reported change build that's coming up, or the ones that just happened?
Nope, just excited to have that fully in the system here in a couple weeks. So or just about a week actually. Yeah, just about a week, and it'll be in there and move on to something else. And we've gotten feedback from at least community partners who have been seeing this, that so far so good. So hopefully everyone still feels that way once it's fully implemented.
I appreciate you putting those numbers in there and explaining them, because I've wondered many times how you can track all this and keep it straight with so many things being changed.
Yeah, you might have noticed that the change requests also have 6-digit numbers, but they start with an 8. So, but there are a lot of them. And so we've been in the middle of working on request 35 for a couple months. And so but we have 2 parts, and although I'd love to double check to make sure we have the wording right on 35B, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Those are the questions when someone cancels and says they want to reschedule. This was the questions that they get to that a user gets, so they can put in potential times that they're available. And so, and then request 59 about our work to simplify that, the one online portal around income. If someone already has an income, we don't put the income screens because people are getting confused and adding that same income back in. So we leave that out, if that makes any sense. I'm, hopefully jogging your memories. But Andrew, anything to add on request 35 and 59?
Nope. Just hopefully today we can get the rest of 35 knocked out, and we'll get those submitted as well. So, or at least what we want to submit, what we choose to submit. But yeah, I feel like the last meeting was pretty productive because we got a lot of items logged after that meeting.
So that's our recap. And Azucena, who just joined us, was actually believing us when we said we were going to start at 10:15. So she was waiting till then. But I'm happy that that top thing on your screen, the guest speakers, they're both here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Spanish version of one. And that's something that just came up with us, and my cat is being very loud. And so they're going to talk about some of the work that's being done to improve the Spanish side, just for awareness. We're not sure how we're going to work together yet, but maybe we'll figure something out. So Adriana and Azucena, I'll let you two introduce yourselves.
Thank you so much, James. And yeah, thank you for inviting us. Hi, Azucena. Nice seeing you too. Well, I can start. My name is Adriana Taylor. I am a bilingual communications officer with the strategic communications team in central office. So I'm happy to be here. And Azucena, I'm sure a lot of people here probably already know you, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Azucena Moreno, my pronouns are she, her, ella. I am the Equity Strategy Manager for Oregon Eligibility Partnership. So I work very closely with James. He gets to see a lot of me. Happy to be here today.
Thank you. And again, thanks for inviting us, James. I think it's important to know there's, as we all know, the reason why we're here is there's a lot of improvements that can be done and that continuously need to get done to the applications, just to make sure that people that need supports and services can, can actually utilize the online applications as one of the ways to ideally apply for the services, get them, being able to not only obviously apply, but manage them as well. But, a while back, also just to mention, I started working at ODHS about 3 years ago. And I remember one of the first things when we started looking into ways to improve
Hey, Jan, I'm gonna
experiences.
interrupt. Your volume is pretty low. Is there some way
Oh.
that you can get a little better?
Give me a second. Can you hear me better, or is it the same? Same. Give
A
me a
little
second.
better.
You might have to turn your volume up on your computer. There's a button on your computer that should bring the volume all the way up. It should be on your keyboard.
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think my headphones are a little wonky maybe, but can you hear me better now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, sorry. But anyways, so I started with ODHS about 3 years ago, and one of the first things we started looking at was obviously ways to better support Spanish-speaking communities in, not only talking to us, applying for benefits, and just improving their experience. And at some point we got a glance into some of the language that was used in the Spanish version of the one application. And we saw definitely many issues with it. We've also obviously have heard, as I'm sure some of you have as well, that the language used in applications can be confusing, can be hard to follow. If obviously, as we all know, if something in English is not really reviewed for plain language, then the translations tend to be horrendous and even more complicated. And that is the truth for the Spanish version of the application. So we started some conversations, but it was actually November of 2023, sorry, that we started working with the OEP project management office, and they decided to take this on as an actual project. So we got together a work group that was set up back then, and I know the invitation was sent out broadly, and we were able to get 11 folks that are part of this Spanish work group revision work group rather. And anyway, so we started working on this, and the way that it has been working is we have our gracious project manager, Joy Maddie, and she basically what she's been doing is she takes chunks of the application, she sends them to the work group on a form where we all get to look at them. We get to review the language that is being used in that specific section, so we can submit our suggestions for edits to the language. She takes that information, she puts it in a poll, so sends it back to the group where we are able to review the different suggestions that folks made. So we can vote on what we think would be the most culturally appropriate. We also look for trauma informed language for the community. So based on that, we all basically vote on what we think is the best translation for a specific area. And then we meet as a group where we get to look into the results of that poll. So if there were, for example, a section that had two different options that had the same amount of votes, we can review that language and then as a group have a discussion and decide what language actually would be the most appropriate for that section to make it easier for people that would be reviewing it or trying to fill out that section to understand and be able to do this easily without needing obviously the help, right, of community partners or assisters or eligibility workers. So once we do that, once we review that, we all approve the language, the changes that we want to make to the application, and then at that point, the project manager sends them back to the OEP team to submit as work items or change items requests. So we've been doing that process again since November of last year, so coming up to 1 year now. we are almost done at this point with the online version of the application. Once we're done with that, we're going to start with the the written form for the application. And we're obviously going to make sure that whichever changes were suggested on language on the online version will be reflected on the written version. But I'm going to just stop right there. And I don't know, Susan, if you want to add anything to this.
So one thing I'll mention is the group has reviewed a large portion of the online portal. It doesn't mean those changes have all taken effect. Some have, but the majority are still pending just because of the process of updating the system, right? There's a lengthy list of updates that need to happen. So we kind of just go wherever we can. Sometimes the suggestions, it's a bit of a kind of resource billing issue where if we send out too many items together, it goes beyond a work item and it goes to a change request, which then would take a lot longer. So what we're doing is trying to keep them into work items so that they can be added fairly quickly without a huge delay right now. And so sometimes what happens is we send out some requests and they are a little bit longer than work items. So we're trying to have the folks tell us like what that limit is so we can create a separate work item so that we don't have to create a change request, which would create a considerable delay in updates. But they are happening, but we're still, you're not seeing a ton of changes yet. I think we've only seen 2 or 3 updates from the work group, but we expect, I think we're in review number 10 or 11 right now. So we would expect quite a few changes once all of this is complete. And George, I see your hand. You're muted, George. Oh.
Okay. So how are you guys, because James was telling us about the AI part of this. How are you guys dealing with the AI to adapt to each language? How's that going to work out?
Sorry, what, and Susana, you're muted too. What do you mean by the AI? Sorry.
Huh?
Can you not hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the audio with my computer has been.
I think part of the discussion last month was, AI translations, and there was, awareness that they can be pretty bad. Does AI have any part in your work?
Oh, I mean, not necessarily. These are, and just to see if I understand, do you mean AI? What do you mean by this? Is if AI is being used on the suggested changes on language? Is that the question?
No, AI was supposed to be adapting to every language, like Russian, Spanish.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
When they go to, I guess because of applying for an application for services like medical and all that stuff. How is that coming about? How is that going to work?
So I think, and I don't know if I'm right on this or not, but I think for other languages outside of Spanish, I think it is true that there is, right? Like if somebody wants to access that information in any other language, it's an AI or a translation software that provides that translation, correct? For Spanish, it's different. For Spanish, I think there is an actual form that is a language that we are reviewing right now. So that is obviously reviewed by staff, and it's going through that, obviously cultural and trauma-aware review. What I think like AI, this could benefit, I think, overall all of the languages is that, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times when do you use machine translation or AI, if the source language is confusing, is complicated, it's not, it has not been reviewed for plain language, that produces horrendous translations. And I think as we, obviously your team is reviewing this the English side, and our team is reviewing the Spanish side. I think if once AI takes that as a source, it should be providing better quality on the translations for other languages outside of Spanish. But I don't know if that answers the question, or again, it asks us if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, I think what you said makes sense. I think, to me, how I think about it is like the Spanish application, there's an actual dedicated Spanish application. So the information on those pages are not, they don't lean on AI, they are static on their own, right? So any changes we make we make to the actual page. We don't rely on AI for the Spanish application because there's kind of a robust Spanish website. We hope to get there with the other languages, but systems are complicated. And so I think that's why we're relying on AI for the other languages right now, which is not what we hope. We hope to expand for sure.
Yeah, but again, I think all these revisions that are being done should help the other languages outside of Spanish.
I think if anything, it goes to show the need for really having that manual translation. This work group is comprised of people who determine eligibility, who work alongside people applying for benefits, both in person and over the phone. So they know the questions that are asked, they know the questions that are tricky to explain. And so they help really bring it to a language that folks can understand. And we have people from different areas of Oregon. So we tried to grab a group from the different districts that represent all of Oregon to really help engage in a really strong dialogue about what's the best language to use for the folks that speak Spanish as they're applying for our benefits.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, Susanna, you were talking about how when changes are made, like from this group, then you review them. So what's the timeline as we put in a change? How long do you think it takes for them to get translated by your group into Spanish, or how does that process work again?
So they're reviewing, and maybe Adriana, you can help me, but they're reviewing like just a couple of slides at a time, like one or two. And I think you meet weekly, or is it every other week now?
Yeah, so we meet every other week. I think so far, whenever there is, because again, as Susanna mentioned, and you guys also all know this, right? Whenever there are those change requests, they don't happen automatically. So when there are changes, upcoming changes to language that we're currently reviewing so far, Sam or other folks from the OEP team have been able to flag like, hey, this is language that I know you guys are reviewing right now, but there's going to be changes to it, right? So then our team is able to look at those and flag those for us, so we can take the time to review. And then again, if there's suggested changes to the language that they have, or sorry, yeah, if we want to suggest changes to the language that they have, then we can go ahead and send it as an item right there. But I also just want to mention that this is a conversation that I've had, with James as well. And I think, as Susanna, we've also talked about it as a project team. I think, moving forward, once this work group finalizes the revision of the Spanish online application now, and we move on to the paper one, as this group or other groups make changes or updates to the English version of the application, we need to figure out what would be the best process to make sure that whenever that those changes are reflected, let me rephrase that when those changes are done to the Spanish version, that they continue to utilize the language that was suggested by this group, right? Like if we suggested a change to a specific word because it is what the community understands and uses, that future translations will continue using that same language, if that makes sense.
what I said maybe doesn't, but let me know.
It does. And just to give you a rough timeline, so let's say the work group agrees on changes and we submit a work item. If it's within the work item hours, the scope, I believe right now we just got one in for December. There have been a couple that we've made too many suggestions, right? We want a lot of changes. And those needed additional review to try to figure out how we can group them differently, so that we might expand it to 2 work items, or maybe we merge 2 submissions into like 3 submissions, something like that. And those have cost a bit of a derail. So those timelines we've seen him like take like probably like double, if not a little bit longer, to add those into like the work item like bucket list.
But how long is that? If I'm concerned that the length may be the difference between a person being able to fill out the form and getting services, or having to wait until they can figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's what we're trying to address. And so right now they would have to lean on the supports that they have been leaning on, right? So we're seeing a lot of folks having to come into the office when they would rather fill it out at home, or having to call the helpline, or having to use family members or friends. So we know that is what is happening as they're trying to work around what we're trying to solve. And we are trying to solve it, but it is a huge system, and there's a lot of moving parts. So it is definitely a slower process than what we'd love to have, but it is changing, and we are allowing space to have a lot of different voices at the table to help make those changes, so that they're very thoughtful, right? It's not just one person saying, well, this is how I would like it. It's a conversation of like, I think this has a bigger, this would make more sense to a larger audience. But yeah, I agree, waiting for those changes to happen is not ideal.
I'm wondering, because I understood, Andrew, maybe you could speak to this. There was a change we made recently that made it difficult to translate into Spanish. It was about the relatives, relationships. And I don't know if it's possible, but I wonder if there's some way when we're working on things that it's flagged somehow, but I don't know how that would work, I guess. We're working on something that it turns out is going to be difficult to translate.
Yeah, so you're right. Sorry, what it was the relationship question that we were rewording, and the way that we had all settled on it in English I think it required some additional work to make it make sense in Spanish. So I think your idea is good, that if there's a way that, I think that's a good learning experience for the group here, that we know that we need to consider how things might look in other languages. And obviously, if that's beyond our capacity, we'll need to reach out to maybe the translation work group or what else. But I think that's something that we can definitely look at. The leadership part of this meeting can look at what the best process is for that, but it's something to definitely keep in mind, I think, as we continue to make updates.
Well, is that something we need to add on? Because I think, like she had said earlier, if there is a suggestion that this is the way it should be worded in Spanish in order for it to be equitable and be, make sense, then why, if we make a change in English, if it doesn't work in Spanish, it shouldn't be forced to change. If it remains a certain way, then is that not like, what we say shouldn't necessarily say, hey, this is ink is dried black and white, it has to be translated exactly like this, because it's same thing. Like we're going to run into the same issue in Russian, Cantonese, Cambodian. Like, so why is it that what we're saying here has to be verbatim for Spanish? Because, you know, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work because we're here to meet the community's needs.
Yeah, I think what was
Keep the same
unique.
point across. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think what was unique about this particular question with the relationships is the way that, because we were saying like household number one's relationship to household number two is this, and when we have things like that pulling from that are like dynamically pulling from a database, it does kind of mandate a little bit how it needs to be phrased for it to make sense on what it's pulling out of the system. So I think you make a good point that if it's something that can be flexible, that we can identify like, hey, like this is what makes sense to our group of predominantly English speaking individuals who came up with this, it can be changed to make sense in other languages. That's great. But I think things that we can identify, like particularly this relationship question, where it does have to, there is some like kind of background function on what it's pulling into the question from our system database. That I think it may be working with partners to make sure that it can be worded in a way that makes sense for, at least in terms of applicant portal for Spanish, until we get additional languages available there.
But then is that just more of like a systems thing, not necessarily what we're doing? Because we also come up with things that say, hey, in the system, it's going to look like this. So that's really also out of our hands, because we had an idea of like, this is how we're going to move it forward. But once it went into implementation through the system, then it was out of our hands, correct? And we can't forecast that because we're not systems pros of what it's going to look like at rollout, right?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get my unmute button. Yeah, you are right. We're not always going to be able to look ahead like that. But I think that's, like I said, a good learning experience for, some of these things. At least Sam and I may be able to catch as we're talking about them and say like, hey, this, reminds me of when we were talking kind of about the relationship question. Like we might need to check in with some people about what we have proposed here and see how that's going to look, and then maybe bring it back to the group before we fully move forward with it. Yeah, so I think really what the best option is just to like take this as a learning experience and try and think more holistically about the proposals we're making, and if we need to reference to other groups or other assistants for us to make the best suggestions possible.
And I'll just say, it's been my experience that if something like that happens, because yes, there's a lot of technical stuff that, I don't necessarily think about because I'm not on the computer side of things, right? That if it is going to affect other screens or other workflows in the system, they do tend to come back to at least give me to have a conversation to say, this is why this might not be possible. Here are our options, or so there should be some type of loop back. So it's not like you're not going to know. You shouldn't be that you're going to be surprised with a totally different outcome that you should have expected. There should be some type of communication beforehand to say, this is why we couldn't do this, and this is really the only option. Does this work? Does this not? That's been my experience.
Okay, Maria, were you going to ask a question? No, I guess not. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't.
Okay, what about the other Maria? Maria Park? Hmm.
Sorry, go ahead. What was the question? Oh, I think I'm having technical issues.
I was asking you if you were wanting to ask a question because I saw your thing come up, so.
No, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody want to ask any more questions with these two people? Okay.
Well, I hope this was helpful. I know this was a pretty active discussion last month, so there's a little context of the work that is going on. And I know I don't need to remind any of you, but ODHS is a big place. I have lots of coworkers doing amazing things, and sometimes I don't, we don't know what the left hand is doing, and the right hand is confused. That definitely happens. So this is just an example of just letting us know what another part of the agency is working on, so we can be thinking about it when we're doing our work.
Well, thank you so much for having us in, and feel free to invite us if you have any more questions that you want to send our way.
Yeah, no, as Susanna said, happy to come back and especially as we're saying, right, like as we look for ways to work together to make sure that, again, that changes in any further changes on the English side of the application are reflected correctly on the Spanish one, that language is consistent, and that we're providing the best experience to folks, regardless of the language they speak. So thanks again for having us.
It was very helpful.
Thank you.
If you guys want to stay on, you can, unless you've got other things you wanted to do. So.
Thank you so much. I do have another meeting I need to get to, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, I do as well. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, James.
Great. Well, I'm gonna share a little bit here. Well, just as a recap, this, since we went a little out of order, we just did this and we talked about our builds then. And so we are now over here in the program, and I put up the PowerPoint realizing, well, I probably should just move us straight over to the briefing sheet, because this is where we're going to have to dig in to this information. So just to let everyone's heads get attached on our work, I will stop sharing and reshare the briefing sheet.
James, I do have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Didn't you say earlier that you guys weren't gonna have number 59? That it was creating a problem of adding another income and taking one out?
I don't have a recollection on that, Andrew. Do you?
No, I don't remember that. I think there were a few proposals we talked about being in our planning meeting, but that was not one of them.
No, I'm earlier in this meeting, before the meeting got started. It was something about.
Oh, the only thing I mentioned is I wanted to verify 35B, which is
Okay.
where I'm at right now on this sheet. And so, because my recollection was like last month or 2 months ago, I forget. I guess it was last month. When people click on the cancel confirmation and they get this screen, well, they cancel the meeting and they get this screen and they click on the cancel and call me to reschedule. Our language is going to be this. Tell us what days and what times are best for you. Please include any other information that will be helpful. Oops, we never took that out. For someone to schedule an appointment. And and I remember Samantha saying, oh, we might have some other language to add to that, but then it turned out we didn't. So we just wanted a confirmation that that looks good.
Looks good to me. April says it looks good to her. What about the rest of the group? Maria, okay. Sydney? Okay. What about the Susan? Okay. Vanessa?
Looks good.
Okay. Judith?
Right, it's good.
Okay. Brandy? Okay, Brandy's having connective issues. Okay, what about we have another Maria in here, right? We have one,
She's with our AP tech team, so she's one of our staff.
oh, okay. So Brandy, in the chat, do we get your vote in the chat?
Right.
Yeah, it's a yes, so go ahead with it then.
Excellent. So we have spent a bit of time talking about this one. This is when someone just hits the cancel appointment. And I know we've gone around a bit about should we collect data, should we not, things like that. But I think this is sort of old language here.
I think those were just some suggestions that we were throwing out there, nothing that has been settled on or anything. And
yeah,
I think you're right. The last time we did talk about this one as a group, there was some concern about why are we collecting this information, and if we are collecting this information, what is going to be done with it? Like, are we asking too much information? Do we need to be prying into exactly why someone's canceling if the agency is not going to be like taking action based on what they say? Like, I think a good example was if someone says, I'm canceling because I don't have transportation. Why are we asking that information if we're not going to be then trying to help with that issue necessarily? Those are some of the things I remember talking about before.
So what do you want from us?
I think we need to make a decision on if we want to move forward with this. So, as James said, this particular part of 35 is asking if when someone clicks cancel appointment, if we're going to be asking, or if we would like to be asking for a reason. Like, is there a reason that you canceled this appointment? We'll propose, the part of the new text proposal would be saying, if you don't have this appointment, your benefits may end. Please tell us why you're canceling your appointment. So that's one option, is to have reasons for why someone's canceling. Another option is to just give them that confirmation saying like, hey, we've got your cancellation, just to let you know, if you don't complete an interview, you may not be eligible for benefits. So I think question one is, do we want to have additional options here for somebody to report why they're canceling an appointment?
I feel like it would be up to maybe policy or somebody else to decide if they want to know why people are doing that. Like, is that data that someone else is going to want to know, right? So we get asked for data about why people who have ERDC are not currently connected to a provider. So that's one thing that now people want to know. They're asking Sydney and I for that. So I guess that would be, is that going to be a data request down the line from somebody else? If not, I feel like just option one, just giving them the warning is good enough.
Hey, Ruth, you have your hand up?
Well, I think to us or to advocates and such, it's important to find out why they chose not to finish the application. And because is it because they didn't understand? Is it because they don't have all the information or such? That if we see a trend in this, then it's time that we make some changes to meet those needs.
Okay. Cindy, what do you think? What's your intake on this?
I completely agree with April. I'm very much against collecting data that no one's going to use and wasting people's time. But if it is something that people want, then I think it would be valuable to have. We just need to figure out if it's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, so I think just to kind of add to that point before we go any further, and as far as we know, we're not going to be collecting this data currently to do any sort of analysis or anything like that. There's no current plan of that, but what it would or could be useful for would be helping streamline the process of on the worker end, moving through canceled appointments to get to like further appointments. I think sometimes we've heard that maybe it's unclear why somebody has canceled an appointment, and then we're trying to reach out to them, even if they haven't clicked cancel and reschedule. If they had just clicked cancel and provided an option of, I do not want benefits anymore, don't contact me again, that would be a clear, like, I want to withdraw my application. That'd be kind of a clear path forward there without too much follow-up, which would then free up time for workers to reach out to other customers. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with the data collection part of it. There's no real like plan to analyze any of these answers.
Okay, Maria, what do you think about this?
Oh, I was just writing some notes in the chat. I'm just looking at the text part, but yeah, I mean, I think if we need the information, then it would be good to collect it. Yeah.
Okay, Susan, what do you think?
I don't know, when I have a reason why somebody canceled their appointment, I'm able to remind people of what happened the last time we talked, or like some people say, I didn't cancel that, and I have notes as to why they did cancel it. So that's just in my everyday work. I don't know if that would be helpful for DHS.
Okay, Vanessa, how do you feel about this?
I remember this came about because this was something that was actually requested from an eligibility worker, from the eligibility worker team, as this is reporting that they're asking to report on. So this is something that they're being requested to document on. And so I'm in the I also hate to ask, just to ask, but I'm pretty sure that they're requesting this to make improvements.
Okay, Brandy, what do you think about you? What do you think?
I also remember hearing that, what Vanessa just said, and also if the information, it depends on how the information will be used. Like there's no reason to collect data if we're not going to use it. But I do remember someone requesting it for a specific purpose. So I guess I'm neutral. I don't really have a straightforward answer.
Okay, Judith, what about you?
Well, it would depend on how much effort and how much confusion that it would add to the daily task of the workers. But I would think that some of these questions that we would be collecting might be very would be very good for us to know in the future. And why go back and have to do something if there's a chance that we can kind of collect this and put it into a little bin somewhere, and then go, oh, well, we collected all of this stuff, so we can go back and look at that. So I just think, you know, if you're gonna, if since you have the ability to do it, you might as well.
Okay. So April, did I already get your intake already? Okay. So who's for the option 1 and 2? We're voting.
And I'll point out, you know, these probably need to be wordsmithed a bit, but it would be good to get a general direction.
Okay, I have one came up with option number 2, that's 1. Ruth, option 1 or 2?
2.
Okay, that's okay. April? 2, okay. Sydney? 2, okay. Maria? Okay. Susan? Susan, did you say 2?
Yeah, in the comment she did.
Okay. Brandy? 1 or 2?
2.
Okay, Judith, 1 or 2?
2.
Okay, you got your vote, number 2. Option 2.
Great. So then I think we need to kind of talk out at least an initial proposal of what we would want for those options. I have some that I'll put in the chat here. I don't, you know, this list can't probably be exhaustive of all the possible reasons someone would cancel an appointment, but I think we would want to hit on some of the main reasons that someone would intend to cancel an appointment and probably not reschedule, because considering cancel and reschedule is its own option. Most of the time we would hope someone would select this option when they were intending to just completely cancel their appointment.
Well, there was an option that came up, Andrew, and it read that I think it was Brandy might have said it, or Susan or somebody, maybe Vanessa, about maybe having someone write in as to why they were canceling.
Yeah, and I think not a terrible idea, but James had pointed out a good kind of follow-up, what was supposed to be for that, but a kind of good response to that is that if we do end up collecting this data and we want to be able to like take it and tangibly do something with it, it'll be more difficult if we have open-ended responses like that. Just because it'll be harder to quantify.
Some people would write a novel, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the benefit of having multiple choice options is that it'll be easier to see when we do analyze that data, trends in what's happening.
Okay, so is everybody comfortable with these options that you see here? Like not wanting benefits, not available, moved out, other reasons?
I would maybe add like, I don't think I qualify.
Okay. Okay, so what others think? April, Sydney, Susan, Maria?
I don't know about what everyone else thinks, but like a too busy or overwhelmed. I think I said this actually last time we talked about this, because that's what I hear a lot actually from families. It's like I started the application and I like never followed through because I was too busy or overwhelmed. So
Overwhelmed, complicated.
yeah, don't have time.
And that
Maybe it
that's
could be something like the application process was overwhelming. I prefer someone to call and help me through the process. And maybe that could be a special trigger on the eligibility side to know that somebody just needs general assistance with completing the application.
Well, this is
How about it's just flat like application too overwhelming or confusing? Because then this would also let us know like we just had folks here from the Spanish side, like same thing too. They're like, I don't understand what they're asking me. I don't know what question. So application process is too confusing or overwhelming.
I was just gonna say, remember the context in this is just, I have an interview scheduled and I'm canceling it. So I think this is good, but I just want to point that out. Yeah, as Cindy points out, they already submitted an application.
And I guess, so like if a veteran does it and they're doing a veteran's dental and then they're over 65 and they get pinged for all the other processes, they may not want everything else, so they don't want to do the interview. So I'm not sure how to word that. It would be like, I'm not interested in any other benefits or something, because a lot of people that come to me, if they're veterans, they've come in and they want veterans dental only. And they put in their income and it says, oh, you now need an interview. And that's because they are being pinged for other services. And they say, I don't want to do that. I don't want the interview. I don't want any other services. So I don't know how to word that, because they don't want the interview. Like, they just don't want.
Well, would that be the first one? No longer want benefits, withdraw my application?
Well, it's weird because they want the dental benefits, but they don't want the other. So see, that would be a trick to them. They would say, well, I do want my dental benefits. I don't want the other benefits. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So how can we make that clear?
I don't know.
How about putting it in parentheses as to the reason after, where it says no longer want benefits?
Well, that's also, I mean, we can't say like, it would be the same thing if someone applies for SNAP and they could potentially be eligible for for ERDC, but they don't want ERDC, they just want SNAP, or vice versa, they only want this. So I think it's going to get convoluted if we try to spell that out.
Yeah. And I guess my question on that is, what's the solution in that situation? I feel like to narrow down what they do want versus what they don't want, they would still want to talk to an eligibility worker during an appointment.
I think we brought something up where it's being clear what the documentation and what the process is for, because many times they don't know what it's for. For instance, there is someone that received a renewal packet and they submitted everything thinking it was for SNAP, and thinking it was for ERDC, but it was only processing SNAP. So maybe within the system, I know we requested that what is this exactly for? Is it for SNAP? Is it for medical? Is it for this? Because many times I hear that they're submitting it willy-nilly and they think it's for the specific benefit, but they're not sure exactly what they're applying for.
Yeah.
Ruth, you had your hand up?
Well, I'm concerned that some of the terminology that we're throwing out here is way above the reading level. And so I'm concerned that when we try to define some of this and what we're trying to get across, that we make sure that it's at the proper reading level.
Would you guys think that if it came out to say no longer want benefits, withdraw my application, that there could be a B, and C underneath that? Do you think it would make that more easier?
So I think what would be challenging with that is that I think, at least in the way I'm thinking this will look, is it will be a drop down menu. Like, so someone will have clicked cancel. There'll be a pop-up saying, hey, if you don't complete the interview, we might not be able to approve benefits. Please choose a reason, or please tell us why you're canceling your appointment. And it would be a drop-down menu. So having sub options on each option might not work with the potential layout, or at least how I'm thinking the layout would work based on how our system is designed. So I think it would need to be a separate point all its own.
Brandy, can you explain what you meant?
Oh, maybe it's just me, but it seems like we keep adding more and more options, and there could be many, many options. And the more options we have, the more overwhelmed somebody could get. Or kind of hone in on trying to figure out the perfect answer when, I don't know, maybe it's more important to figure out what are the main options that are so more important for them to pick. We can list those out, and then any other option they can put in a text box. If that makes sense. Like, it sounds like we're spending a lot of time on figuring out what all the possible options are for them to not complete the process. It also depends on what data someone's trying to collect, I guess, if that makes sense.
I think that's a great point, Brandy. So yeah, with that said, I think the list we have here is I think it provides a lot of options without getting too super specific. And then if we do have that open text box option, that would hopefully cover some of those other scenarios we've talked about. So I don't know how folks feel about what we have proposed here and going with this, given what Brandy said.
Hey, James, we're due for a 5-minute break. Can we take a break and come back to this?
Yes, we certainly can. I was just pointing out these two seem a little similar, but yeah, let's take our well, I think it's a 10-minute break. And or I forget these things. But we'll be back in checking. Yeah, let's be back at
18 after?
18 after. Thank you.
I'll see you all back at 18 after.
Oh.
All right.
Okay, is everybody back? We're now back in session. Okay, Brandy is back.
Let me get back to where we were. There we are. I forget how to get rid of the paper buffers, but I think we're okay. So yeah, here's we pick up where we left off on when people cancel an appointment and they get a confirmation screen, and this time around they decide to just hit cancel. So we'll collect some, I guess there'll be a pull down menu or a drop down menu rather, and we're just thinking about these options here. After it reads, if you do not complete the interview process, or if you do not schedule an appointment to complete your interview, your benefits may end. Please tell us why you are canceling your appointment. And I think we were talking about how to narrow this list, if at all, if possible, so we're not overwhelming people with options.
Yeah, it's not up to me, but I think that looks pretty good. If there's nothing glaring that we want to remove from it, I think we can vote on if this is what we want to put forward.
I'm not sure why, if he moved out of the area, why are they even looking at the form?
Because maybe, they might have gotten an email or a notice. If they're using the mobile app, might have gotten a push notification about an appointment, things like that. And, someone might just ignore it and say, I don't live there anymore, I'm not going to deal with it. But somebody may want to follow up on that, so they stop getting contacted by the state.
I'm going to make a plug. I'm wondering, if these two aren't similar enough that we can combine them into one.
Yeah, I would at least think that the strong wording could take care of whatever's in behind it and not confuse people. Like what Vanessa was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we need to vote on this, so what do you guys think? Any ideas?
I think we could probably get rid of the application process is confusing and just hold on to not sure what the interview is for.
Okay. Yeah. Thoughts before I do that?
Maria agrees with you. Brandy, what do you think? Vixen.
I'm good with it.
Okay, Brandy, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and Susan?
Well, Susan had a question of what does need an interpreter indicate? I'm kind of feeling that like maybe need an interpreter or additional assistance. Because it just means that I'm guessing if I was to select this, I don't feel confident and clear in what I'm applying for. And I know there's folks that are not native English speakers that don't apply for fear of like, I don't want to get in trouble or do something. So they would rather have support before officially applying. So either need an interpreter or additional assistance or assist. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think what this could indicate to assuming this is going to show up on the worker screens, what this could indicate is like, oh, this person may not know that we have folks that speak Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, Somali. And then maybe someone who speaks that language would be able to reach out to them and offer to either help them through the application process or complete that interview for them. If it was someone who didn't know that we had those services available. Or yeah, not just interpreter, but additional support as well.
Or they might not have scheduled the appointment with an interpreter, so they need to reschedule with an interpreter.
We should, I mean, at least in my experience when I was an eligibility worker, that we should be able to figure that out for them. If say I got someone on the phone and I was an eligibility worker and I don't speak their language, there's processes that we have to get them connected with somebody who does, or to get interpretation services on the phone, things like that. So, but I in my mind can see a scenario where someone doesn't know that those supports are available and just cancels their appointment because they don't know, they're worried that they're not going to be able to do the appointment correctly, or they don't have trust in the process, and just knowing that that's why someone canceled might, I think, give a good starting point for a worker to follow up on that.
Oh, okay, Andrew. So like, does that mean that that if during the interview process, if the client needs an interpreter, they can just get an interpreter right away?
Yeah, so DHS has a number of staff who speak languages other than English. If one of those staff is available, we can get them connected. If not, we have like language line services where we'll call and we'll get a third-party interpreter on the phone. That isn't the ideally we would get them with an individual who speaks their language, so we wouldn't be going through a third party. But there's a few different options of how we can assist people in with language services.
Okay.
Yeah, Maria, I think it was originally your idea to add this line. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was just thinking, if the client indicates like, that they want to cancel the appointment because they don't think they have an interpreter, they might choose that. But yeah.
What if we put in parentheses where it reads need an interpreter in parentheses, but please ask. That way, then someone could say, okay, well, this person needs an interpreter.
And if they choose need an interpreter, and I can take off I was thinking about having this other bit here, but then the worker will know that, that some different outreach needs to be done. But I'm still going back to Susan's question. What exactly does this indicate?
Well, there's an interpreter for the deaf. There's an interpreter for language. It could be all kinds of any type of interpreter.
Yeah, I think it would take some follow-up on a worker's end to see, if someone said, I need an interpreter, I think putting on my worker hat, I would look at the application that they had submitted and see, did they indicate they speak a language that's not English? Did they indicate they have any assistance needed, like sign language, any other sort of assistive tech? Go from there. But I think really on like a base level, what this is saying is like, I'm not confident in completing this this interview on my own. And so I'm canceling the appointment. And that would be an indicator that someone canceled it, but maybe there's a way we can follow up and help make that possible.
Susan asked, is there any workers following up on canceled appointments?
Yeah, so I mean, they'll see, we have to follow up on applications that haven't been completed. So I think to a degree they are. I'm not totally, it's been a while since I've been in the field with one, and I don't know exactly what the outreach process is on that, but I think part of adding this information here is to help follow up on that, to say like, is this someone canceling it and I don't ever want to be contacted again? Or is this someone canceling it and we need to reach out to them to try and complete this application process within the 30 to 60 to 45 days, 45 to 60 days, whatever the application timeframe is for that given program.
Well, Dion came up and said, forgive my naive, would someone need language assistance be able to make it this and understand what need interpreter means? I didn't understand that, Dion.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt the dialogue, but I'm just curious, because I don't know what this process would completely look like from the applicant portal side. But if someone needs interpretive services, would they be able to get to this point of filling out the application and canceling the appointment and doing all these things? I imagine there would be potential that maybe there's just a few terms or things that aren't fully understandable, but I guess it's in regards to, would this actually be a viable option for canceling?
I have a question. So I'm assuming that the assisters or community partners, we would also be able to see this too, right? Or like through our side, we could help them to cancel an appointment or keep right?
Yeah, so this would be, anyone who had access to
Okay.
Yeah, a applicant portal user, a community partner, or an authorized representative. And
Okay.
I think Dion, you make a good point, but I mean, I could see it being hopefully a rare circumstance where someone was able to get this far and needed to select that they need an interpreter, so they were canceling their appointment. But I mean, I think if we do, it's good data to have. If we are seeing people cancel for that reason, then I think we see that there's a gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to make this inclusive, right? But I just was thinking about, as we're trying to find a way to sort of consolidate these, I was just looking for other thought processes. So thanks.
So are we all comfortable with this? So we can vote on it? Ruth? Okay, got one vote. Ruth? April? Sydney? Okay, Maria? Was that a yes? Okay. Susan? Susan?
I'm just still confused about need an interpreter because their language and needs are already, I mean, it's already documented in the application what their language needs and other needs are. So I think it's more than just need an interpreter. I think it's, I don't know.
So you're thinking we don't even need to have that line in there because it's already been stated somewhere else in the, we've already covered that the first part of the application. Is that correct?
I guess we're just not confident I can complete this process or need additional assistance in applying.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, Susan, is putting, like, if you could probably combine those two options, is what I was saying, need an interpreter, not sure what interview is for. You could put I'm confused or need additional assistance. Would that cover both of those? That was just a thought that I had, but
Yeah.
similar to what you're saying, Susan.
So what do we need to do to come together to vote on this? Vanessa, what's your take on this?
And then take out the need for an interpreter, because if you have need for additional support, I think that covers that there.
I like Dion's statement in the chat.
Oh, let's see, what's that say?
Yeah, is that kind of addressed with changing the wording here to be a little bit more broad? Because then, you know, it would capture folks who need an interpreter, but maybe it was also additional support.
Vanessa, what do you think?
Sorry, guys, give me like 5 minutes. I had to take a call. I will circle back. Sorry, guys.
Okay, Maria? Oh, okay, we went back to you. Okay, so who am I missing?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to share from previous experience as an eligibility worker at a front office when interviewing for SNAP benefits. In some cases, I would find that when the application was submitted, it was done by maybe an adult child for the person requesting who didn't speak any English. And then when it came to the interview time, that information was not specified on the application because the application was done in English for the parent. So I would find myself having to either find, if it wasn't Spanish, other than Spanish, because I'm bilingual in Spanish and English. If it wasn't Spanish, then I would have myself finding another person that could assist, another worker with that language for the interview, or I would find myself connecting to the language link, the third party, to be able to facilitate that interpreter service for the client when interviewing. In some cases, rarely, we would have to reschedule because we couldn't find an interpreter to provide that service at the time. So that was also when it was, I think it was an inconvenience for the client to have to come back or reschedule that appointment. So it does happen where the application or the request is made in English, for example, by another person, and then we end up the day of the appointment or the day of the interview having to find that interpreter service. So I do think if we want to remove it or put it in addition to another point, I'm okay with that, but I feel like having that interpreter word there will be more clarifying for anyone that needs that specific service.
Thank you, Maria. Great point.
But how would a person know that there won't be an interpreter? Like, there's nothing with the appointment stating what language the interview will be in. So I don't think people would be canceling knowing that there is an interpreter available.
Well,
Oh,
what
sorry. I was going to just ask. Go ahead, George.
what if they get a notification that there is an interpreter for them?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Sorry.
So, I would, when I was a caseworker, and things might have changed already, but the way we would do this is on the paper application, if it was a paper application, the front desk would write a note on the top of the application when they requested an interpreter. So we would know that an interpreter was needed. In some other cases, the notes before the worker starts the interview or even their appointment with the individual, we would pull up any case in any case notes that we would have available. In some cases, the front desk, when they submitted the application, they would also indicate there that the client needed an interpreter.
Yeah, and on the application currently, there's a space to mark if you are requesting an interpreter or other assistive technology, other interpretation services. So, you know, ideally that should be indicated, but in the scenario you mentioned where an English speaking family member is filling out the application and doesn't know to mark that or doesn't think to mark that.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that
we wouldn't have that information when
Yeah.
at the time of the intake.
So I guess the real question is do we feel like need additional support covers all of the potential support someone may need, including interpretation, or do we need to add back need an interpreter?
Yeah, yeah.
Maria, you were about to say something?
Just a side question, I guess, like in the notice that the client receives, indicating like when their interview appointment is, does it also mention that an interpreter will be provided or will be available or something like that? Is there some messaging like that? Maybe that would be helpful. And then, you know, I agree with Maria that, yeah, if we ask the client here, why are you canceling your appointment? Because I need an interpreter. That seems like a valid reason.
James, what if something was sent out to a client 5 days in advance that they already have an interpreter ready?
I think it's opening a whole other discussion. I think we need to decide on this. And then if we want to look at what the notices include or don't include, or what we want to send for appointments, that could be something we have a different discussion about.
Okay, well, we
Well,
need to decide on this here soon.
Yeah, I should put this to bed, but Susan, does that help? I know.
I'm just afraid that workers aren't going to be reviewing this list of people canceled. And that's kind of a missed opportunity. If they need an interpreter, they should be canceling and getting called to reschedule so that an interpreter is provided. I mean, at least for medical, many people even miss their interview and nobody follows up with them. So to cancel it, I just doubt that with everything that workers have to do, they're not reaching out to people who are canceling.
So part of what we haven't gotten to yet is request 39, which is adding all of it's, you know, the kind of a companion to this to add it all to worker portal. So again, I think it's probably a larger conversation about what the actual process is around following up and what they have time to do and what's going to happen. But this, you know, this information would be shown if we push forward both 35C and 39, then this information would be showing up to workers in worker portal.
Well, we need to decide what we're going to do with this because time is getting short here soon.
And I think just one more thing out on that, Susan, I think you make a good point that like it may that this isn't a built-in part of our process currently, but without the functionality to indicate any of this in the system, it definitely won't be. So I think if we, you know, implement this information or these functionalities to report this information and then to have it shown in the worker portal, that may help guide process development towards making a better follow-up process for canceled appointments.
Okay, do we need or do we want this new text proposal to be discussed in the next meeting in November? I'm all up for if you guys want to discuss this again for next meeting in November. I'm getting a lot of yeses in here.
Yeah, it makes sense because it'll let this sit a little bit, but I think we're really close.
So the majority is all yeses for next meeting in November. So we can take this to the next November meeting. But I'd like, and not to sidewind Andrew here, but would like to bring up that one that Vanessa has been really wanting on number 50. Because I know we're getting short on time here. Something she's been wanting. That one right there, the ERDC.
I don't know if I want it. I think it's beneficial for the community.
So I'm going to have to jump to the next screen, but here's the background. Customers, well, add an ERDC waitlist status to one online portal and mobile app. And so this is really small and difficult to see, I know. But the idea was to add it somewhere on this screen. And here was the list of possible ERDC statuses. And Andrew, can you speak to where on this screen it would go and a little more context on this?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, that's part of what needs to be determined. I think so as it would appear now, if someone applied for ERDC, they weren't eligible to be waived from the wait list, they would be denied for ERDC if they went through the entire application. The denial reason would be that they didn't meet a waitlist exemption. So this could show up in the denied programs section, where when it's saying that they've been denied due to the wait list, it would say what their waitlist status is. It could be an entirely separate section in child care assistance. So in the screenshot on the first page here, The upper section that we're seeing, oh, no, actually, if you go right back to where we were, James, that was perfect. Yeah, so where it says childcare assistance kind of in the middle of that page there, that's where it would show approved childcare assistance. We could add like a section to that to show what the waitlist status was, or we could try and work it into where it's showing as denied. I feel like it might read better if it's within the childcare assistance area, because then it's not, I think if it's in the denied programs area, it could be potentially confusing if, as you see here, the person's been denied for both ERDC and cash assistance. If it was to be in the child care assistance area, then I think it might be a little bit more clear, you know, what the situation was. Part of that is we're going to need to work with our developer on exactly what that placement would look like.
So how long would it take to get that together?
Hold on. So, because right now, if a family doesn't have ERDC, the child care assistance doesn't even show up. This won't even be here. If they don't have ERDC, even if they've right now, as of now, if they've applied, this isn't here. The child care assistance, this is only visible if they don't go willy-nilly. Only if it's active. So if it says effective date, you can just put like waitlisted, you know, or like waitlisted active, waitlisted renewal. And just so that it says there, because it's technically it's not effective, but they're waitlisted. And then if that isn't, and then that'll let us know that if this isn't even showing up and showing up waitlisted, that means they're not on it at all, or whatever it may be. Because right now there's nothing that's there. It's either it's active or it's not.
Yeah, and I was even thinking like potentially like a different table, like that would go within. So these little blue, like dark blue and light blue boxes, we call those tables. So I was thinking maybe even like an additional table within that child care assistance that had fields specific to the wait list. So it hopefully would avoid confusion with it being an approved benefit, like like it wouldn't say effective date or anything like that. It would say like wait list status, and then list one of the reasons that we had below.
So this original table would be gone. It would just be a completely different table if you're on the wait list, or if you apply, or, you know, if you're on the wait list.
That's what I'm thinking would look, probably it would make the most sense and not get confused with it potentially looking like an approved benefit. And then also avoiding lumping it in with the rest of the denied program benefits down there if they were to be denied for other assistance they had applied for.
That makes sense, because right now it's still saying it's denied. Even though they're denied, you're on the wait list, they think, oh, I'm not eligible. So yeah, if it was its own table, that would be great. Sydney, April, are you still on? Do you have any notes or suggestions?
I agree with what Vanessa said. You know, people get on the ERDC wait list and they get a denial letter that says really big at the top, you are denied. And on the second page, it says, well, you're on the wait list. At least that's how I read it. It's that quiet. So I think Vanessa's idea is great.
Okay, and then I think part of what we need to decide about that is the statuses that it'll display. And just below this on the next page, we have a list of what those statuses approved by policy were. We did talk through these last time, and just to go through them again real quick. Active, that means they're active on the wait list. That means they're, you know, say denied, wait list active, wait list status active. Inactive, invitation sent would mean the wait list has been inactivated for that family. They've been invited to apply. Inactive list deactivated would mean the entire wait list had been deactivated. Everybody is welcome to apply. Inactive applied for benefits means the waitlist is inactive and this family has applied for benefits. Inactive did not respond would be the waitlist is inactive. The individual or family has been invited to apply and they did not respond to that invitation. Point 3 here, the inactive list deactivated. Last time we talked about this, there's some thought that rewording this might be a little bit more clear. This is all kind of like worker speak a little bit, how this is all labeled. So just one thing I came up with was inactive, no current application wait list. Might read a little bit better to someone, you know, just be totally clear what the situation was.
So Vixen and Brandy, do you have a problem with this? Vixen, Brandy?
I have no
So-
problem with it.
So this active, inactive, yada, 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 that would be under their, it's like ERDC and then its status, their personal status, it would say active. And that just means they're on the wait list.
Yeah, it's either it's
Yeah.
active or it's inactive or it's inactive or it's inactive, but it's like inactive with like inactive invitations. And I think also like to me, I got all the problems with this because this is hecka confusing. I mean, I get it, inactive invitation sent. If you're doing that, I know that they also only have an X amount of time to apply. So the date that the invitation was sent should be listed and the date of the deadline should also be listed. Because I think they're only given how many days, April? Sydney? Anyone save us? I know it's a small window
I don't
to
know.
reapply. You're basically having to resubmit everything.
60 days, isn't it? The resubmit or the
No, 60 days is if you were kicked off and you want to reapply
got
and
it.
not go on the wait list. That's the 60 days. And then inactive list deactivated means if you qualify and you apply, you're in, right? We got billions of dollars and we're good to go, woohoo, right? That's what that means. Because I mean, we're trying to figure this out. I can't imagine a family having to look this up and be like, wait, does active mean good or does inactive mean bad? But I'm inactive, but it's like, which inactive are you? This is like I have lots of feels about this and how messy this is going to get.
Yeah, these words do not look like they are made for families. Like, I'm glad the policy approved it and they're jazzed about it. But for families, there's no way they're going to know what any of this means. I barely know what it means. And I'm pretty familiar with the ERDC system.
So what would you guys put on here?
Maybe it's because I see no end of this wait list in sight, and that's really negative of me, but just having like an active or inactive status would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that may be an option. And like you said, this came from policy. I doubt they were thinking of what this would look like on the applicant portal, at least to anyone unfamiliar with the RDC. So if we think the best option is just active and inactive and leave it up to the notice that they receive to explain the details, that I think would be a viable option.
Guys, don't be Debbie Downers. We're going to come into lots of money. Come on, y'all. Best case scenario, we'll have an option. I still would like to see, like, if it does happen, if we find lots of dollars, because we don't even get to see the notices, guys, and they throw away the notices. So to have at least like, if there's an option, like, hey, inactive invitation was, I don't know. I agree I would like to see something because, maybe we'll run into money. Who knows?
How long do these wait lists last?
We have no idea until we get all this money.
Years, Judith, years.
Just to let you know
wow.
that there's a new, for those who don't work with the RDC, child care assistance. It got rejiggered. It's a nice new program as opposed to the high copay, low benefits, blah, 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 that it was before. And so now we got 20,000+ families who are in it, and there's not the budget to pay for it. And so really, we're going to have this wait list until the new biennium. And in theory, if the legislature kicks in a lot more money, they get rid of it. But right now, they're barely scraping by with the wait list. So
The way
yeah,
this is
this is
looking,
confusing to me.
the way this is looking, I think I'd be pulling my hair out, trying to figure it out. I'm sure glad you guys were able to figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like the inactive no matter what the situation is, if your status isn't active, it's kind of like you need to go back and talk to somebody, like regardless. And so that's kind of like to a certain point, I do agree with Vanessa, like some information would be nice, but for families, it's kind of like, oh, hey, you need to do, it's a, yeah, a notice, like you need to go talk to somebody because you either can move off of the wait list or there's a reason why you're not active, so.
Oh, why you're never active. Oh.
All right, so as new, we put on the waiting list. Need to talk.
I'm just writing stuff down because I find this stuff confusing too. I mean, is this accurate?
Oh, we got something to work on for November.
Yeah. I mean, James, that looks like very straightforward. Like probably the most straightforward a government document could ever look.
Yeah, I would say, or need to take action to receive benefits would be the other one, assuming, as Vanessa is saying, that
Oh,
there's
yeah.
money again one day.
There are, yeah, people who can bypass the wait list. That needs to be its own thing. Well, we're not going to finish this today, but
Have a kind of slightly off topic question for you, James. Because I know that we added in this section for ERDC about like whether or not they're connected with a provider,
mhm.
but it doesn't actually show any, it doesn't, is it supposed to say anything but not connected? Because it only ever says not connected, even if they are connected. From my point of view in the system.
That doesn't sound good. Andrew, do you know anything about that?
I'm sorry, what the question was about the provider connection status?
Yeah, which is something we added, but as I've been like reviewing cases, even the people I know who've been billed who are for sure connected, who I can check are connected, it doesn't say they're connected.
Okay, that's definitely an issue. It should say they're connected. Do you, I don't know if you can connect with me and send me some examples and I can look at them. And if it's a bug, we can work on having Dole fix that. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so in the next meeting, we've got the EDRC. Number 50, and we've got the other one to work on.
We're really in the weeds now. Woohoo.
Okay.
Was that a bit of sarcasm?
It's an accurate statement.
Guys, I had spoken to James about the iconic graph.
Iconography.
Yeah, we've been putting it behind for the past 3 or 4 months. And I had suggested to him to maybe put in your guys' email and see if that would work. So you guys know what that is and what that meant and what's in it. So you guys would have a better understanding. And so, James, what do you think?
I think I'm going to make Sam ask gently to Andrew and Sam to prepare some info for that. So,
yeah,
many months ago, we talked about, like the red X and the pencil and other things as a definition page for all those. And Andrew, you were going to say something.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think we're interested in having this discussion. If this is what the group wants to focus on, we can move to that. But there are, we still need to make a decision on the rest of 35 and 35.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get 35 done today. We didn't get to it.
Yeah, so I really, again, it's not up to me entirely what we discuss. I feel like it would be beneficial if we can try and knock out 35 and 39. And then if we want to put this up, do the iconography before moving on to any additional requests, we could look at doing that. That's just my feelings on that.
Well, I guess James was asking if we should put this on people's email. That way we'll have enough space on the agenda. That's the whole idea. That way we can get on to what we're supposed to be getting on.
But I agree with Andrew. Let's punch this out first, 'cause I think this is something we can also clear the list by getting this taken care of. So let's get this done, and then if we need to, we can just do a blurb to get an email on that other one.
Well, we're over time, so
Yeah.
are you wanting to do this next meeting?
I think we can put more things in emails. We'll have to be asking people to do a little more reading between meetings, though, which we haven't done a lot of. So that I think that might merit a longer discussion, and we're losing people since we are a bit over time too.
Okay, we'll do it another one more month and go from there.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dion. I told myself I was going to leave extra time for the wrap up, and here we have negative time, but don't forget coming up next week, Andrew is going to be the star of the show, going through the one application, and Samantha will be monitoring the chat, answering all your questions. And then I also please we'll send an email shortly after this, but we need to think about what our calendar will be for next year. So this is just a scheduling form. It's not very dramatic. It's just a list of all the different possible times to that don't work for you, so we can figure out where our meetings will be next year. There's a good chance we'll be at the same time, but we'll see. It's up to the members of the committee. So
James,
yeah,
here was one. Vixen had asked us, can we invite others for those walk-through sessions? The meeting time from the link doesn't allow us to check. Can put in chat.
oh yeah, there's a shorter version of it, but I'm just going to put this long one here. Good idea.
Okay. So
and to answer your other question, Vixen, yeah, sure. It is more made for partners, so we're not as
Well, I meant like a couple of the Neon staff that does what I do.
yes, that would be perfect.
Thanks.
we just have to, well, they have to make sure they send out the links to you guys.
Well, she can share the link.
Yeah, I can share the link that I got.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Okay. So we'll be working on what we were working on before, and the number 50 and icon, including their boss be here next month. So with that being said, we're closing the meeting at 12:06 p.m. You guys all be safe, and I will see you on the 15th and the 29th of this month. Please let others that have already departed, let them know too, so they're not in behind for the 15th, 29th. See you.